Hi, here we go.
Today we're asking, who does Antarctica belong to?
Welcome to Map Men.
We're the men?
And here's
I'll
the
do it properly.
and here's the map.
Map men, map men, map men.
I don't know who Antarctica belongs to, but looking at their map, there's the flag of Norway, Australia, the UK, and then there's one I can't quite make out. It's either Argentina or Honduras. Well, Honduras wouldn't make sense, so it's probably the flag of Argentina. I just know that the researchers pretty much run it over there. And thank you to them for volunteering as tribute, because it could not be me. I hope they talk about tardigrades in this video, because those animals do interest me. I'm convinced they're going to outlive us all.
Antarctica is the continent you know least about.
When it does have the decency
True.
to appear on maps, it tends to be shown as a crinkly white stripe across the bottom.
Or, for those watching in Mercator projection, a massive splodge of white, twice the size of the rest of the world's landmass combined. So little thought is given to what shape it really, or how big it really, is.
Here,
I can confirm that the Mercator projection did indeed deceive me as far as the size and shape of Antarctica. I thought it was way bigger than it actually is.
on a round Earth, is what Antarctica really looks like from below. Deciding which way up this map should be is difficult, since every direction is north, but most maps have been standardised this way, with 0 degrees longitude going straight up from the South Pole.
During the winter, the sun doesn't rise for 4 months, and temperatures reach the dizzying lows of minus 60 degrees Celsius, which is the same as minus 60 degrees centigrade.
Surprisingly, it doesn't actually snow a lot. Antarctica is one of the driest places on Earth, and technically
Fahrenheit was just rejected.
the world's largest desert, as well as looking like the world's largest dessert.
It's covered in a 4-kilometre thick sheet of ice, littered with perfectly preserved corpses of generations of dead penguins.
Sounds like an awful place.
It is, but that hasn't stopped
That's
people from
wild.
trying to own it. In the late 19th century, Antarctica was the last bit of the world map yet to be properly filled in. Dozens of brave explorers from Britain, Norway, France and various other seafaring countries all set out for the South Pole in a bid for fame, glory, fortune and prizes.
And the winners were Norwegians Roald Amundsen and his crew, who, surviving the blistering cold by eating their own dogs, became the first humans ever to reach the South Pole
Not the
on December
dogs.
14th, 1911.
They then spent 3 further freezing cold days taking celestial measurements just to make sure they were in the right spot.
Good. I was right. Let's go.
Today, British schoolchildren learn about Amundsen as a small footnote in the story of the much braver British Captain Scott, who reached the pole 33 days after those naughty Norwegians, but at least had the decency to die before he made it home.
Even though Amundsen had done the South Pole, the race to own Antarctica was only just hotting up. Owning more land increased your chances of finding valuable things like gold, zinc and uranium, which Antarctica had lots of.
And so Norway, France and especially Britain claimed they owned the bits of coastline where their early explorers had planted flags.
With no locals to say otherwise, these claims stretched all the way to the South Pole like Trivial Pursuit wedges. Apart from Norway, who, content with being the first to reach the pole, were content with not pretending to own it.
Faced with a blank
So humble.
canvas, colonists were allowed to be as inventive as they liked in coming up with the names for their new Antarctic colonies.
Queen Mary Land, King Edward VII Plateau, Princess Elizabeth Land, Queen Maud Land, Graham Land.
But British domination wouldn't last. When Australia and New Zealand got their independence, they also inherited the wedges nearest their coastline that they'd been taking care of for the British, and they've continued to hold on to them since.
At one point, a small portion of Antarctica was claimed by Nazi Germany, who in 1939 flew over dropping massive darts with swastikas on them. Historians today consider this to be in the top 10 least important things to happen during World War II.
Okay, top 10 least important things to happen during World War II. 1. Nazis claim a small portion of Antarctica. 2. Argentina declares war on Germany. 3. Nazis make special stamps for French troops. 4. Eva Braun buys a purple hat. 5. Hamburgers are renamed Liberty Steaks in the US to sound less German. That truly did happen. 6. Winston Churchill eats a pear. He probably did. 7. Heinrich Himmler sets the Nazi Party record for number of overtick points in a bridge game. 8. The vending machine is restocked in Pearl Harbor the day before the attack. Number 9. British Army changes the color of its webbing from khaki to khaki drab. And 10. General Montgomery names pet dog Rommel. I thought these were jokes, but from what I see, at least some of them are true. The vending machine one seems especially hard to prove, though.
Perhaps the oddest claims come from Chile and Argentina, who in the middle of the 20th century suddenly remembered that they already owned Antarctica before it was even discovered.
In the 1400s, when Spain and Portugal were colonising South America, they made a deal to split the continent between them in a dead straight vertical line.
And because South America hadn't been fully explored in those days, the deal made no mention of where the line stopped.
Centuries later,
Spain really came out of that one on top. The Treaty of
with
Tordesillas.
Antarctica now discovered, the ex-Spanish colonies of Argentina and Chile politely suggested that the line might end at the South Pole, meaning these bits of Antarctica would technically belong to them, specifically the bits directly south of their own borders, which meant their claims slightly overlapped each other's and massively overlapped Britain's.
The only wedge of Antarctica not claimed by any nation was this section here, Marie Byrd Land, remote and hard to get to even by Antarctican standards, making it the largest expanse of land on the planet not claimed by anyone.
And that's how we got to this colourful cartographic confusion today.
Overlapping territory, rival disputes, exactly what sort of exciting dramatic consequences did this have?
None.
Good.
Britain didn't seem to mind overlapping territory with Chile and/or Argentina. It simply ignored them and continued pretending to own the place. Chile and Argentina returned the favour by simply ignoring Britain.
This was all fine and hilarious, and none of it mattered, until...
It's the Cold War. Almost every conflict around the world is in some way related to the ongoing personality clash of the two great superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. So if you live on a large, remote, disputed landmass, you might want to prepare yourself for some nuclear weapons testing.
Because the mood on the international stage was all the countries involved and several more countries who weren't involved felt that in order to keep hypothetically peaceful Antarctica actually peaceful, they might have to, at the very least, hold a meeting.
In 1959, they all signed a big piece of paper called the Antarctic Treaty.
Antarctica is the common heritage of all mankind. It should be perfectly and peacefully preserved for future generations, literally forever. Oh, yes. So, will you all give up your territories?
So they came up with a compromise. All nations who already had colonies on Antarctica could keep them, as long as they never expanded or changed them, and no one was allowed to make any new ones, which meant the map was effectively frozen. Two countries to whom this rule did not apply, by the way, were the USA and USSR, who uniquely were, and still are, allowed to make their own new territorial claims on Antarctica if they ever fancy it. Because, you know, big.
In return for being able to hold on to their claims, all the countries agreed to the following rules.
No mining, no military, no nuclear waste, no explosions, no heavy petting.
This meant that countries technically could still own the place, but they weren't allowed to do anything that made it look like they owned the place. They both owned it and didn't own it.
Clever.
I can appreciate a Schrodinger's cat joke. I was watching a video on Antarctica. It was this man from the US Air Guard, I want to say. And he was stationed at McMurdo. I specifically remember a part where he woke up at 2 a.m. and it looked as bright as midday outside. Which is probably a part of living on Antarctica that wouldn't bother me as much. You just need some blackout curtains. And one of those eye masks to sleep, and you're set. I would prefer to live in perpetual light way before I would choose to live in perpetual darkness. How it sometimes gets, well, I think in Antarctica as well, but in parts of Norway, Alaska. Anyway, that was all to say, why is the US Air Guard allowed to be there? Or were those rules just for all of the countries that aren't Russia and the US?
The Antarctic Treaty is still upheld today, and as a result of its success, it's the world's largest nature reserve. A vast, stunningly beautiful, totally unspoiled wilderness.
Apart from the more than 3,000 scientists in hundreds of research stations from every country you can think of.
And more than 44,000 tourists a year.
Tourism in Antarctica is now more popular than ever as big, huge, polluting cruise liners arrive for people to gawp at the ice sheets.
Everyone is asked to leave Antarctica exactly as they found it, which means everyone's favourite Antarctica fact, you have to take your poo home with you.
You don't want to look in those.
Nah.
But perhaps the biggest threat to Antarctica is climate change. In the last decade, Antarctic ice melt has led to over 4 millimeters of global sea level rise, resulting in catastrophic consequences across the blah 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 blah.
The precious
Would you go to Antarctica or no? I would do it if I were invited, but it would have to be for a very short window. And I've never been on a cruise, so, you know, you have to get over that initial fear of it just sinking like the Titanic. Also, very unappealing landscape, not a tree in sight. And after you see a few ice sheets, I feel that they would probably start looking the same. Plus, it would have to be in the summer months. So, starting from December, because there is no reason to be out there when it's dark all day.
precious Antarctic Treaty will expire in 2048, which sounds like ages away, but actually gets closer every 5 minutes.
Depending on what sort of leaders are in charge or what mood the international community is in, the treaty could end up being scrapped in favour of expensive ice hotels,
Or quad bike racing tracks.
or a Southern Lights themed music festival,
Or huge movie sets for movies set in the Antarctic.
or perhaps just good old-fashioned resource exploitation and all-out war.
Either way, the human race is going to have to decide what kind of future it envisages for cold, white, barren, faraway territories held together by fragile treaties.
Because Antarctica isn't the only one that's worried.
Alright, Mapmen is going to be linked down below. There have been times where it's 3 a.m., I can't sleep, and I just find myself flipping through video after video of life in Antarctica. And whenever I fall down a rabbit hole search, it's usually because I'm interested in seeing what people eat in a place. So I'm sure I Googled at some point, what people eat in Antarctica, which led me to one of those what I eat in a day videos. And then suddenly you're 3 documentaries deep watching people play baseball and celebrate New Year's Eve over there. I actually watched this one, it wasn't a documentary, just a video, an interview of people who were stationed at McMurdo. And they were talking about how they lived in such close quarters and shared bathrooms and bedrooms. And how by January, that general politeness that they used to have for each other starts to wear off because they know each other better now. And they start to argue. Which would be a very tough aspect for me of living in a place like that. I value my privacy a lot. Also in Antarctica, I want to say 2013, that was when the first Tinder match was made over there. I learned that from watching a Mr. Ballin video. If you have any Antarctica fun facts, please add them down below along with your thoughts, and we'll go on to the music. If I had to give Antarctica a musical genre, it would be ambient. And since I don't listen to ambient, today's genre is going to be music without lyrics. I'm going to start with one called Breezing by Masayoshi Takanaka, which was a song recommended to me by a subscriber. Masayoshi is from Japan. He makes rock and was releasing a lot of music throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But as far as I know, he's still going and still touring. For those of you who like guitar and bass, try this one. He is very skilled. That's the first one. The second is Zeus and his song Winter's Breath. He is out of Poland, and he's easily one of my most listened to DJs right now. I found him through one of his mixes a few years ago, and I've been listening to him ever since. He's become one of those YouTubers for me that you watch for years, and you love seeing finally get the attention that they deserve. He's one of the better DJs on the platform that I know of right now. I'm going to link you his YouTube channel. And if you do end up going over to his channel, please go over there with immaculate vibes. And lastly, for the people who don't like music without lyrics, I'm going to go with one called I Walk This Earth All By Myself by Ecstasy. I want to say he pronounces that. I picked this one only because Antarctica is one of those places where if you're stationed, it seems like you're surrounded by people, yet you're somehow still lonely. Or maybe that's just how I would feel without privacy. Anyway, the song is alternative indie. So drop your music choices, and that's all from me. Thank you for watching with me. I'll see you next time.